The three theorems of psychohistorical quantitativity. The population under scrutiny is oblivious to the existence of the science of psychohistory. The time periods dealt with are in the region of 3 generations. The population must be in the billions for a statistical probability to have psychohistorical validity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Foundation Analysis, Episode 9, The First Crisis. I am your host, Brent Stewart, and of course, we're going to just jump right in. And the episode opens with a great monologue by Gail talking about humanity's greatest invention, and she postulates that it is history itself, but as she continues on, Gail is actually talking about mythology, not history. Like we were talking, it switches from history to narrative, which is an important distinction that I think needs to be made. So, as I was watching the episode, I was like, hold on. But that then leads to a scene, a flashback with Abbas and Salvor, and they are talking about humanity's origin. Where does humanity come from? And there is the idea that humanity originated at a single system from a single planet, but they acknowledge that there are many theories as to which of the planets it is. They list, several that are familiar to us, like Alpha Centauri, and and there's mention of Earth, which is, grounds the story in our continuity, give or take, or at least has a touchstone. And it's a little jarring, but it's cool, and follows the actual canon because Foundation and the Robot series do fall in the same universe that has a Earth. And the point of the flashback is learning about using your logic over your emotion in your brain. And that's what Abbas is trying to get into Salvor as a child. And it's a good lesson. And it'll become relevant in the episode. So then we cut to current day and we have the jump happening. And Salvor is having a trip. She gets to see or relive moments in the room from her perspective on the floor, which is cool and interesting, but probably not to experience. And then the jump ends and we see that Lewis is dead. He plugged himself into the machine to activate the jump to jump them to Terminus, and that it's cool. Like that. There's some neat prosthetic work where the wiring is starting to poke out of the front of his face and then back into his skull, probably to get at certain parts of the hemispheres, and it looks very invasive and painful, but it is a really cool bit of prosthetic work, and narratively, Lewis going out on a high note, I was like, yeah, I see it happening, but at the same time, if I knew him, I probably wouldn't see it happening, sort of thing, So it's like, yeah, I like it. I liked it as well. It's like he gets a good exit stage left, and as Salvor is examining him, she finds that he has a coin in his hand, and it's a little touching. And then Salvor calms down to the planet, and no one picks up. And then she notices, while trying to mess with the Invictus' systems, that the Thespin ships were dragged in the wake. So then we cut to Trantor and Brother Day and Azura, and they are planning their escape. It's a lovely little promise that is made about getting Brother Day a new name. The big part of the plan that is important and why they're waiting is because they need a signal dampener for Day's nanobots. And Dusk shows the additions that he has made to the wall to Brother Day, and starts describing the hunt and how he always knew that Cleon was in him, and then during the hunt he realized that there was something else as well. He talks about the subtleties of color and movement and nuance and all of that, and then leaves him to reflect, and Brother Day puts on the little enhancers that allows him to see colors, and then he sees 6 raptors. So Dusk is definitely on to him. Definitely knows about the other 3, So Dawn starts to panic, and Pax just going to head out as soon as possible because that makes sense. And that's when the Shadow Master calls. And Don, tries to talk his way out of it, and Shadow Master is quite insistent. And so they head out, and Don is able to escape by overloading his bracelet to send out kind of a shock wave that knocks the Shadow Master out or down, and he's able to make a break for it and escape through the back parts of the palace, eventually into the water treatment system, which, is very reminiscent of a classic movie. Apparently the actor did do the slide down there with some water, so props to them, because that looks like, oof, it would hurt. Yeah, so it's a neat little scene that we get to see we get to see more of the palace grounds, which is cool and makes it feel larger than the couple of rooms that we see regularly. So then we cut back to the Invictus, and Salvor jumps back to Hugo's ship, the Beggar, and almost skids off into space. So, almost doesn't stick the landing, but she's able to get there, and she gets in and wakes the Beggar up. And yeah, it's kind of like this great beat of, okay, that leg is done. What now? Well, now we cut back to Trantor, and Dawn is waking up on an outlet pipe, or in an outlet pipe, and there's a bunch of people looking at him. It is kind of implied that they are the homeless or the vagrants on Trantor, or they don't have anything or anywhere to be. And he trades his bracelet, Dawn that is, for a jacket to hide himself. And then he gets some directions and heads out. We then cut back to the Beggar, and Salvor opens up some channels to try and get through, hoping that the issue was the Invictus's systems. And apparently it was not, because again, no one is picking up. And then Salvor gets notified that there is some incoming debris, which she's about to destroy with the weapon systems, before realizing that it is, in fact, Hugo. So good thing to stand down at that last second. And so once Hugo gets inside, he and Salvor have a great little character building moment, even though sometimes it feels like Hugo's positions flip-flop depending on what motivation Salvor needs, about commitment and action and all of that. And at the end of the discussion, Hugo heads out to the Thespin ships to, plan with them and make contact, and Salvor heads down to the planet. And Trantor is next up, and we have Dawn traveling across the capital planet, seeing parts of it they've never seen before. Azura monologues his journey, in little sort of ghosts of her, or how she would interact, describing it and things. And it's a lovely sort of little cute moment. And and then eventually he makes it to her place, and they reconnect, and that is when Dawn starts to fall apart, because he is exiting fight or flight mode, and keeping that up for a while, well, that takes a toll. So you need to have a moment. And she comforts him, and there's lovely little back and forth and a discussion about how he smells because of the jacket, and so he should probably take a shower. And so he heads off to do that, and that's when it's realized that it's a trap, because he turns around and it's like, wait, I need that name. And because wanting to start fresh and new, and shower, bathing, symbology, starting with a new name, that's not a terrible way to start a new life. But that's when Azura turns, we'll say, and it is a trap. He has been suckered in, and she starts opening fire, and he is able to flee out of a window and make it a little ways before being cornered by the rest of her cohorts, who have arrived to enact the plan. And as he is knocked out and going down, we see one of them in a pretty spiffy looking coat, and it's him. It's Brother Day. It's a Cleon clone. But then we cut to the Invictus, and the Thespins have secured the ship, and they have lost Farah. She's not secure anymore, so she must have woken up and broken free, because her bounds have clearly been cut somehow. And there is also some great dialogue in Thespin, so subtitles on, about what happened here and how that story is essentially lost, which is poetically sad, we'll say. So then we cut to Trantor, and Gale is monologuing again over Salvor landing, and we get the mythology / redacted history again. And this is clearly a monologue from Gale in the future, and everyone is knocked out and all kind of headed towards the vault, which doesn't make sense to me because the null field has already expanded, so they would not have been able to get as close as they were. But thematically, it's important for everybody to be there for reasons, and so that's what's happening. And everyone's knocked out. And Salvor heads to the vault, and so there's like a bunch of people in the town, but there's also a bunch of people that were heading towards the vault, and so I don't see how the ones that got to the vault got there that quickly is what I'm saying. It turns out her mom has gotten the closest, and maybe that's because she has something, particular something being the Prime Radiant, which Salvor is able to use as a key for the vault, we'll say. And it opens up in the sense that it loses its black coating, and it is the same inside as the Prime Radiant. You know, it's got the gold filigrees inside, and it's got a almost crystalline outer shell. Very cinematic, very CG like it. And that is, of course, after Salvor takes a moment to meditate on how to activate the Prime Radiant, because they did it once kind of by fluke. And during that, we get the Gale monologue again, speaking about mythology. And that's when the obsidian, the black coating on the outside of the vault kind of breaks off and scatters, and everybody starts to wake up. That's what happens when the vault's defense systems are deactivated, we will say. And then it lands and kind of pitches open, and we get a little shot of energy, lightning going in or out, and a blooming light, which is described as like a door or a portal. And that is when we cut to the Thespin ships, and the commander is heading out with his ship and the other one. The third, unfortunately, is commandeered by Farah, by her killing all of the crew except for the pilot, and then getting it slaved to her, and then killing the pilot, because what did you think was gonna happen? Just saying. So then we cut back down to Terminus, and Dawn is waking up. The other Dawn is there, and there's just some great acting by the actor portraying both the incarnations of Dawn here. One is using their natural accent, the other is using a put-on accent, and just I can't tell which is which. They're amazing. It's super cool. Just shows some amazing range, especially when they start to gloat and mimic, and there's this moment of like condescending, the like scared little tyrant in the making, and it's just really, really well done. Particularly the moment when they mimic each other, like the what are you talking about? So just like, oh, chef's kiss, sort of great. And they, of course, in the tradition of the supervillain plan, explain what their plan was to Dawn to gloat. And they do this as the bots are being transferred. Azura tries to console Dawn, and doesn't really work, I don't think. Stings a little bit, especially when they finish the procedure and he rips out the transfer port, and our Dawn, we'll say, continues to bleed, whereas the new Dawn gets stitched back up because the nanobots have transferred and are into them now. And that is when the other sting happens, we'll say. Or more specifically, the raid. And specifically, a special ops team busts in, kills everybody. They shroud Azura, and the other new Dawn is killed by the Shadow Master, and Dusk shows up once everything is secured and gives Dawn a dressing down. And Dawn pushes back and, says, try empathy, try having a heart, try being human, connecting with someone. And the conversation goes back and forth, and it is not productive, but ultimately it is Brother Day's decision about what happens, not Brother Dusk's. So they are going to have to wait for him to get back to figure out what they are going to do. And then we cut back to Terminus, and there is a standoff between the Thespins as they land. And it's kind of interesting because well, first the Thespins play ship, and then the Anacrons stand down, and then Farah shows up with her commandeered ship and plays surprise attack, destroying the other two ships, and kind of takes over the situation. And it's important to note that she is almost definitely suffering from jump psychosis here, which is a thing. Like there's a reason you get knocked out before you go down. It's important to note because this is the mental state that Salvor does the tough sell of logic to, whereas during the best of times Farah was probably not the most logical, or not the most logical in the long term sort of ways. And that's when the vault finishes activating and starts, getting that energy shooting out of it, as I mentioned. And that's when Farah opens up with the ship onto the vault. And that's, not good. And Salvor recognizes this. Luckily, the vault seems to be somewhat robust and can take a couple hits, because it doesn't look like there's any damage, at least initially, from the first couple volleys. And Salvor is able to scramble over to the bow and put Farah down in a very cinematic way. And so Salvor plays bow and wins ultimately. And then we get another standoff between the Anacrons and the Thespins. And that's when Harry shows up. Yeah, Harry is back again. He's walking down from the hilltop out of the vault and says that it is so promising to see the Anacreons, the Thespins, and the Termini all here together, that it might actually work. And no, that's a mic drop to end an episode on, because we last saw Harry either getting blown up on the Raven or getting frozen with Gale. So I mean, the other thing is, I have been listening to the Apple podcast, and they said that the vault was not what you think it is, and I thought it was the recordings of Harry, or what it would be the recordings of Harry in this updated version. And so I don't know, I feel like a little lied to. It's like that kind of is what I thought it was, so, but that's a meta gripe, we'll call it. And context and inclination, and like could be talking about it in a different sort of frame, but my feelings are hurt is all I'm saying. But regardless, it is a great episode. Lots of action, lots of really cool stuff, storytelling and world building, and really cool, really great episode. Great penultimate episode for a season, especially first season out. And so hats off to the crew for putting on a great show, and all the people working behind the scenes and etc. And that's where we're going to leave off today. This project is supported by the On the Origin of Battlemechs podcast Patreon. If you enjoy it and want to hear more of my discussion of Foundation, please let me know and possibly give your support there. Special thanks to my friend Treble for the intro and outro. Everybody have a great day. Bye.
Don't you see? It's galaxy-wide. It's a worship of the past, a deterioration, a stagnation.